Hi everyone, this is my show and tell video for the homework set for lesson 18 of Paul McWhorter's all new Arduino R4 Wi-Fi lessons for absolute beginners. You'll notice I'm not using an R4, I have ordered one and I'm still waiting for it to arrive. In lesson 18, Paul introduces us to the RGB LED. An RGB LED is a component that's got red, green and blue LEDs all wrapped up inside of a single light source component. It's got 4 leads coming out of it, 1 for ground, and then the other 3 leads are for red, green, and blue. In his lesson 18, controlling the RGB LED with an Arduino, Paul shows us how to set up the RGB LED and then write some code to control the colors that are emitted by it. He uses the serial monitor to request inputs from a user, where the user is asked, do you want to see red? Do you want to see green? Do you want to see blue? Based on the input from the user, the response, the sketch in the Arduino will light up the red, the green, or the blue parts of that RGB. In the homework for this lesson, Paul challenges us to take the code a bit further and allow for the user to request additional colors. Cyan, magenta, yellow, white, and even for the user to request that it be turned off. He hinted pretty heavily that we were going to need to actually mix the colors of red, green, and blue to do this. In my initial solution, I kept it pretty simple. I just started mixing the colors with a digital write, blue and green for cyan, red and blue for magenta, and red and green for yellow. I figured out pretty quickly though that the red, green, and blue LEDs within the RGB didn't emit the same light intensities for the same voltages. And so digital write wasn't really getting the job done. I wasn't getting a nice cyan, I wasn't getting a nice magenta, and I wasn't getting a nice yellow with my very simple solution. And it occurred to me that I was going to have to do an analog write and I was going to have to tailor the voltage output to the red, to the green, and to the blue parts of the component so that the light emitted was an appropriate intensity of red, green, and blue in such that I got the colors that I actually wanted. Then I thought to myself, why am I going to this trouble? Why should I have to figure out the exact analog voltage write delivered to the red, to the green, to the blue to be able to mix up the colors that I require? Why don't I just make the user do it? And I remembered a previous lesson of Paul's where he had us controlling an LED intensity with a potentiometer. I thought to myself, well, why not introduce just 3 potentiometers? And then the user can dial up whatever color they want. So that's what I did. And this is my show and tell video for that particular circuit. Okay, so here is the sketch that I've used. I've identified all the variables I'm going to use in my sketch. In the void setup, I've got my serial monitor initialized and I've identified the different pins I'm going to use and which one's going to be outputs and inputs. This part of the code receives information from the potentiometers for red, green, and blue, and then transforms that information into an output for the RGB LED for the red, green, and blue. These 3 final parts of the sketch speak to the serial monitor and print out the inputs and the outputs that are being used in the program to help me keep track of what's happening. So let's see it in action. Here on the screen, you can see that I've got the serial monitor set up to be showing what's happening. As I've got the potentiometers on the board, we've got the red, the green, and the blue potentiometers moving from left to right. Operating the red potentiometer turns on the red part of the RGB, the green turns on the green, and the blue turns on the blue part of the RGB. As you look at the serial monitor, you'll see the values increasing and decreasing with the colors as I turn on and off the potentiometers. Turn on a little bit of red, turn on a little bit of blue, and we get ourselves magenta. Turn off the blue, turn on a little bit of green, turn on some red, and we get ourselves yellow. Turn on some blue, turn on some green, and we get cyan. Now we're going to try for white, but unfortunately at this stage of the game my potentiometers were starting to pop in and out of the breadboard. And of course we can turn off the whole device by turning off all the potentiometers. Here's a fun little thing that I discovered. There's a program online called Tinkercad, and it gives you the option to prototype Arduino circuits in the Tinkercad, write the code for them and get them running. I thought I'd just throw this up there to give you a little bit of a look-see. So, you know, if you haven't got an Arduino, you can still have good fun with the Arduinos and learn about coding using Tinkercad. Nothing beats doing the physical version though. Okay, I hope this was useful.